Okay, now let's start focusing in on how to actually make money trading this strategy. So there are two things. One is you need to achieve a win rate as high as possible, really, but certainly more than the average, which is currently around about a third. So this is a case of trying to trade matches where more than a third of them actually go to 3 sets. And secondly, getting a good entry price and getting a good exit price will just enhance your profitability and also reduce your losses should you need to get out during the second set. So first of all, let's just deal with the effect on your profit by trading more matches that go to 3 sets. So in this table here, we've got an example where if you win 35% of matches and therefore you lose 65% of the matches, what are the figures? Well, using an example of an underdog that starts the match at 3.0, they win the first set, so their odds go down to about 1.5. And if they do lose the second set, their odds will typically go back up to round about their starting position 3.0. Let's just go through the maths and see what happens. And the assumption we're making here is that if it's one of the 2 out of 3 matches that don't go to 3 sets, in other words, the first set winner goes on, wins the second set as well, then we're looking to get out when our loss is around about 50% of our potential profit. So let's just run through the figures here. So we've got a stake value of £100, and we'll lay the first set winner, which in this case is the underdog, at 1.5. So our risk is £50, but equally if they lose the second set and their odds go back up to 3, then we would hedge for a profit, and in that instance it would be £50. And of 100 matches, we therefore win 35 times. So 35 times 50 is £1,750. The flip side to that is that we would lose 65% of the time. And as I've said here, we wouldn't wait to get to lose the whole second set. We'd get out sooner. And I've used an arbitrary figure here of 1.2. When the odds drop from 1.5 to 1.2, that typically means they're in a commanding position. They more than likely will go on to win the second set. So we would get out at that point. So running through the maths here, we've got the same stake value of 100. Because we got in at 1.5, our risk is £50. The odds drop to 1.2. We go, let's get out. Let's take the loss. We take a loss of £25 here. So we would lose 65 matches. 65 times £25 loss equals a total loss of £1,625. Profit less loss equals £100. That's why trading every match and only getting around about a third correct is not good value and a complete waste of your time, quite frankly, because that 100 is a completely arbitrary figure, and it could flip either way of loss or a profit. So now let's look at achieving a slightly better win rate of 40%. Exactly the same setup we've got here. This time we're winning 40 matches at £50, so that's 2,000. We're losing less matches, but still 60 times 25 is £1,500. One away from the other gives you a profit of 500. So you can see that the work that you do to select matches worth trading using this strategy is so much better for your profitability, because that's an increase of 5 on what would have been a very ordinary and risky trading strategy, just hitting a third. Incidentally, for a 45% win rate, using the same numbers above, the profit would be £875. And if you're interested in our match alert service, which basically sends you a text at the end of the first set for specific matches, that's achieving around about 55%, and that would yield you a £1,625 profit. So the point here is that match selection is key to your long-term success. The more matches you trade that go to 3 sets, the more likely you are to make money in the long term. So increasing your win rate as much as you can is one of the key factors of success. And the other is getting the best entry price, the lowest possible in this case. So your aim here is to get the lowest entry price. And how do you do that? Well, there are 3 ways of doing it, and they basically increase in risk of how confident you are and how long you want to wait before you get into the trade. The easiest and most straightforward is anywhere between the end of the first set. Don't get in there before the end of the first set. Wait until the set is over. And between then and the start of the second, while they're basically getting ready and having a break ready for the second set to start, it's a live marketplace, and the odds for both players will move up and down based on what the marketplace thinks, and also some of them might be exiting trades that already have completed in the first set. If you're confident in waiting for the first set winner to serve their service game in the second set, particularly if it's the first game served in the second set, if they win that game, then their odds will drop further, in which case you could wait until that happens and get a better price. Or, depending on your assessment of risk here, if your player gets ahead during an opponent's service game, but you still believe that your player will lose the game, so they may go above 15 on their opponent's serve, or maybe even 15-30 or something like that, the odds will drop in favour of your player, which means you can get in at a lower price. But again, it's all about your assessment of how confident you are and how much you believe that that player, whilst putting up a good fight, will actually not win the second set. And while you're doing these, as the risk increases, there is, of course, sometimes your player will break the opponent's serve straight away, and while you're waiting you think, oh well, the odds have dropped completely now and it's no longer worthwhile, and that is part of tennis trading. You just have to accept it, move on, and wait for the next match to be traded. Here we've got a graph that shows snapshots of the odds for both players at the end of each game, to start the game at 0-0, for example. So the favourite here is in the green, and that's their starting odds at the beginning of the match, and that's the starting odds for the underdog, 6.2. And in this match you can see that it was 4-all, and then the underdog broke the service game of the favourite, so their odds shortened, and then they went and won the first set. And as I say, this is a snapshot, so this is when the set would have finished, so still slightly shown as the underdog, and then during the break and the beginning of the next set, the odds shortened even further, so it went down to 1.9, and either of those have been in an ideal entry point. But you can see, if you just hold off a bit, and this is very much how you see things, how you read the situation in front of you and your approach to risk. If you waited until the end of the first service game, which in this instance was served by the underdog, and they won it, then their odds dropped down to 1.45. And even when the favourite served and they won their serve, clearly the marketplace thought there's a chance here that the underdog's going to win the second set as well. But if you think differently, then waiting for these sorts of opportunities, these lower odds, will give you a much better entry price. It lowers your risk, because if on a £100 trade you're only risking 45, whereas here you'd be risking 120. And of course, if you're right, then the odds at the end go back up to, in this case, 3.7. But again, if your nerves can take it and you think, okay, now the underdog has lost the second set, I think it's just a runaway now for the favourite, well, you could hang on in there, and we'll cover that in a lesson later about whether you should trade the third set. But this is an example of when you should enter your trade. Ideally, don't do anything until the end of the first set and you know the result, because weird things can happen. But even then, you don't have to jump in straight away. You're really looking for the best entry point, the lowest entry point, and that's based on who's serving first in the second set, as well as your own assessment of how things may progress from there. So getting a really good entry price, as low as possible, will significantly improve your profitability and reduce the size of your losses. But also, when to close your winning trade, in this case the highest price possible, will also help you boost your profits. The best place to close your trade is at the end of the second set. That was, after all, what this strategy is about. You thought the first set winner would lose the second set. They did. You're in profit. Cash out. And again, as you know, the odds move between the end of one set and the start of the next. So if you've got nothing better to do, you could hang around and see if you get a slightly higher price. However, if you feel that the momentum in the match is shifting towards the opponent, so they've now won the second set, and you believe that they may actually go on and win the match now, then you can wait. If they're serving first, for example, in the beginning of the first set, you could wait to the end of their service game, and if they do win it, the odds on your original player, the first set winner, will go even higher, and that will give you a much better exit price, and it will boost your profits. Having said that, the other place to get out is during the second set, and that is if it gets to 5-all. That's too close to call. We never trade tie breaks, and I certainly recommend that you get out at 5-5, because by that time what you were hoping for should have happened, and if not, well, you're just rolling the dice now. You think, well, maybe they will and maybe they won't. And also the odds swinging between both players will be very violent, because of course from 5-5 either player can win the second set at 7-5, and that could be against you and you've lost your stake or your risk value on your stake, and it's just not worth taking the risk. So if it's 5-5 in the second set, then exit at as better price, as best price as you can get, and that may mean that you make a very small loss. It may mean you make a small profit. And so that's when things go your way. The second set has been won by the opponent. You've made money, and what we're doing here is saying how can we maximize the profitability and minimize any losses. But of course it doesn't always happen that way. You will get your fair share of losses, and in the next lesson we'll look at what to do when things go wrong.